When you picture the fall of Rome, what do you see? Barbarians crashing through the gates, legions in disarray, emperors being poisoned in their marble halls. But that's the Hollywood version. The real story, the one that matters for your wallet today, is quieter and far more sinister. Empires don't just die from a sword to the heart. They die from a poison that spreads through their veins, a poison called money. Rome didn't just fall. It went broke. It was a collapse engineered not on the battlefield, but inside its own treasury, and the financial disease that killed it is still alive and well in the 21st century. For centuries, the Roman Empire ran on one of the most trusted currencies the world had ever known, the silver denarius. First struck more than 2 centuries before Christ, this coin was the bedrock of the economy. It was nearly pure silver, and its value was unquestioned. Soldiers were paid in it, merchants traded with it, and common families saved it, knowing it was real wealth. The denarius was more than just money. It was tangible proof of the empire's stability. The strength of Rome and the quality of its money were inseparable. As long as people believed in the empire, they believed in its currency. But here's the brutal truth every government eventually learns. Running an empire is incredibly expensive. You have legions to pay, thousands of miles of roads and aqueducts to maintain, and endless wars to finance on distant borders. By the 2nd century after Christ, Rome was stretched to its breaking point, and the tax money coming in was no longer enough to cover the bills. So, the emperors found a trick. It's a trick that governments still use today. Instead of raising taxes and angering the public, they decided to cheat. They started quietly reducing the amount of silver in each denarius, mixing in cheaper metals like copper, but forcing people to accept the coins at their old value. It was a silent, invisible tax on everyone's savings. The numbers tell the story of this betrayal. Under the first emperor, Augustus, the denarius was about 95% pure silver. A century later, it was down to 85%. By the early 3rd century, under Caracalla, it was only 50% silver. And by the reign of Gallienus, the denarius contained less than 5% silver. A coin that was once solid precious metal had become a worthless bronze disc with a thin silver coating, a cheap forgery made by the government itself. And people noticed. They could see and feel the difference in the coins. Suddenly, it took more and more of these junk coins to buy anything of value. That's called inflation. A measure of wheat that once cost a single denarius soon cost dozens. Society began to unravel at the seams. Soldiers, whose pay was now worthless, demanded higher wages. Merchants started refusing to accept the debased coins altogether, preferring to barter with goods or demand payment in gold. Local economies abandoned the official currency because trust had been destroyed. It was a death spiral. The less the money was worth, the more coins the emperors had to mint to pay their bills, which only made the money worth even less. This financial chaos ignited one of the most turbulent periods in Roman history, the crisis of the 3rd century. For nearly 50 years, the empire was torn apart by constant civil wars, invasions, and economic collapse. Emperors were assassinated in rapid succession, but the real rot was in the financial system. The government became desperate. One emperor, Diocletian, tried to solve the problem with brute force. In 301 AD, he issued an edict fixing the maximum prices for over 1,000 goods and services, from grain to wages. The penalty for breaking the law was death. But it was a catastrophic failure. You can't command a worthless coin to have value any more than you can command the tide not to come in. The official markets collapsed, and a massive black market exploded overnight. The law couldn't make a broken coin whole again. By the time Rome abandoned the denarius and leaders like Constantine tried to introduce a new, stable gold coin, it was too late. The damage was done. The debasement of the currency had hollowed out the Western Empire's economic core. It could no longer afford to sustain its armies, its trade networks were shattered, and the trust that holds a civilization together was gone. The barbarians didn't destroy Rome. They just kicked in the door of a house that was already rotten to its foundations. So why are we doing a financial autopsy on an empire that died 1,500 years ago? Because Rome's story is a blueprint for collapse. A warning that has echoed through history ever since. Governments never learn. They always think they can get away with playing games with money. The Roman trick of debasing silver coins is the same as the modern trick of printing paper money to cover debts. Fast forward to Germany after World War I, drowning in reparations, the government turned on the printing presses. By 1923, A loaf of bread that once cost 1 mark cost over 200 billion. People hauled their wages home in wheelbarrows. Or look at Zimbabwe in the 2000s, where inflation hit 89.7 sextillion% and prices doubled every single day. You might think these are just extreme examples, but the Roman pattern is happening right now in a quieter, slower form. In 1971, the US dollar was taken off the gold standard, severing its last link to anything tangible. From that moment on, our money became a fiat currency, backed by nothing but trust in the government. And just like in Rome, the temptation to spend beyond our means became irresistible. Since then, government debt has exploded and inflation has become a permanent feature of our lives. On the surface, the money looks unchanged, but the purchasing power it represents has been systematically drained away. They create an illusion telling you that rising prices are just the cost of a booming economy, that massive borrowing is a smart investment in the future, and that a soaring stock market makes everyone rich, conveniently ignoring that most people have little to no stake in it. It's the same lie the Roman emperors told, just dressed up in modern language. What makes this so dangerous today is that the scale is global. Rome's crisis was confined to its empire. Today, the entire world financial system is built on these same fiat currencies, massive debts, and the promise that central banks can print their way out of any problem. When this system finally cracks, the crisis won't be contained to one country, it will ripple across the entire globe. So what can you take away from the financial fall of Rome? The first lesson is this: rising prices aren't some random economic weather pattern. They are the direct result of decisions made by those in power. Inflation is a tool. The second takeaway is to reconsider what wealth truly is. It's not the numbers in your bank account, which can be devalued overnight. It is found in real, tangible assets that hold their value when money fails. Productive businesses, land, resources, and valuable skills that people will always need. And the third lesson is a warning against complacency. Don't ever believe that the financial system you live in is indestructible. The average Roman in the 1st century would have laughed at the idea that their silver coins would one day be worthless artifacts. But financial systems can unravel slowly and then all at once, as soon as trust evaporates. When money stops being real, society itself comes apart. In the end, invading armies get the blame in the history books. But the fatal wound is always self-inflicted, delivered from within the nation's own treasury. History doesn't repeat, but if you don't understand it, it will crush you all the same. The Roman currency crisis was about the fragility of money when it is abused by power, and that fragility has never gone away. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. Have a great day.